support to the eradication of asbestos than any other group, meaning the public health group. Now, as to other continents, I have the report of our colleagues how rapidly Africa has become interested in better public health and the integration of health programs with nursing and human health. And as to China and Asia, a billion people, in India, a billion and a half in China. Those are enormous numbers that we must consider in our work as veterinarians. We veterinarians are thinking in terms of one medicine, one health, one prosperity for everybody. I think you're all acquainted with my words of one public health plus good animal health equals economic health. And this is a formula that can be exploited in every population. Take care of your own health, take care of your family health, take care of the animals, and you'll all have a feeling of satisfaction. But beyond that, you'll have stabilization of society and economic health. God bless you. Carry on. I'm so thrilled to think in the 70 years I've been in public health, we have such a wide audience to talk to. Now the jury, and I hope the new century will keep with great rewards to all. Thank you.
Certainly hear it, and we're very, very appreciative to all the people who've spoken today. But now it's time to hear from the audience. It's time to hear from everybody who's in the room. We really want to seek any ideas because many, many things were put forth today. And we want responses because we really believe that this session should develop ideas to further cement ideas that Will had summarized, that were in the air today, that were very obvious, that are things that we talked about. Remember, we are to take a challenge tonight, and we would like to hear comments from anybody about any aspect of what was said. And this is an unusual format, and it will require you all to go ahead and take a little risk and stand up and say, okay, I heard Linda Logan say this, or I heard Joanne Lindermeyer say this, and I was wondering that. So this is what this time is set forward. Any thoughts, any comments, any questions? We have obvious leaders in the room. And if you don't stand up, who wants to be first? Who wants to be first? Excuse me, Greg? Yes?
Go ahead.
No, Greg.
Go ahead. Well, good afternoon. My name is Gregory Cameron. Currently I serve as an Assistant Secretary of Agriculture at USDA. So for those who raise their hand and don't know, USDA has boundless opportunities One of the comments I think that was very important that we all must consider is the idea of capacity. Because the very idea, as Luke's comments on economics, okay? Whenever there is the idea that there is an oversupply of something, you know, the market has a way of adjusting for that. I think that was part of the message today, that the market indeed does have a way to adjust for those kinds of things. And I believe that the challenge is our opportunity to adjust to those kinds of things. As you work with your other colleagues that are in other parts of veterinary medicine, helping them to understand that the challenges still remain. When I came out of Ohio State in 1980, I was convinced that all the great infectious disease work had already been done. Okay? Because it just seemed that everything was just quieting down. But when I went to the Centers for Disease Control, that was the time of the emergence, if you will, of what originally appeared to be outbreaks of Kaposi sarcoma and pneumocystic carinal pneumonia, which were the precursors to what we came to know as AIDS, okay, or HIV. And so, you know, we began to rewrite the whole history. We began to talk about the re-emergence of infectious diseases. And not only have they re-emerged, but they've come at us in new ways. And so the challenge, I believe, as we go forward, is to not only understand what has happened before, but to anticipate the challenges that remain. And this is what Dr. Steele has talked about, you know, all along, is that it's not enough to rest on the laurels of our history. It's important to celebrate, but it's not enough to rest on it. And so our challenge and our opportunity is to really write the history of the next 50 years. In the Department of Agriculture, one of the things we're going to be focusing on very shortly is what does the next 50 years look like? As you see the challenges that we had this year for an unprecedented time in terms of the lack of passage of a farm bill. Some very fundamental things that affect what you all in this room do, okay, in ways that maybe are not even understood yet. But we're hopeful that Congress will emerge and do what it has done in the past in terms of putting a farm bill in place that helps to set the agricultural policy for this country. So as we do that, please stay attuned to those kinds of things. It might be outside of your comfort zone, but it's never outside of the area of your competence. And I say that because I've had the experience in USDA of being involved in several different kinds of positions, but all of them were related back to a systems way of thinking that I learned in veterinary school. And so I would say to every single one of you that the opportunities before us are vast, and it's up to us to take advantage of it. Thank you very much.
We hear again and again about systems, and we hear about cyclic reoccurrence of events. And you know, of course, there's a very nice little book by Cal Schwab, Too Many Veterinarians for What? And it's a very good question. Next question.
I'm Mike Dix from AVMA. And one simple action item we can take, and although I'm not getting any money for saying this, although if Craig is here, if you want to give some of that money to AVMA as I promote your book, we certainly take it. But I think the book that he wrote should be required reading for every pre-veterinary student, not just the veterinary student, but anybody that considered going into the profession. Had I known about Jim's life before I became a student, I may have followed his path. I think it's really interesting. I don't know how many of you know that he started off as an assistant and he was a forestry student, and he sort of moved toward the opportunities, and that was a real point of his success. And I think if people read that and see all that's available, given what he did in his lifetime, I think that more people will see those opportunities and guide themselves that way as they go through the profession. So I would suggest that be one action item we can take.
Thank you very much. Any other comments the way forward? What challenges are we facing? Mike, feels good.
Well, James Steele asked us to say, what are we going to do now or next? And these are my thoughts. Based on what he said, I think we need to identify how we're going to improve several things. How we're going to create, or how we're going to improve animal disease surveillance and reporting around how we're going to improve it, but when are we going to do that? So we need to do that now, and we can do that together. As far as identify how to improve animal disease veterinary workforces around the country, I think that goes hand in hand with the disease surveillance. It's probably the first need to work on those veterinary workforces. We also, not only in developing countries, but even in our own countries, even this country, we need to make sure we have an adequate veterinary workforce. And we need to make sure if diseases are introduced, that we have the search capacity to take care of those. And sometimes we don't have those right now, so we need to identify how we're going to do that. And then where the funding is going to come to get those. I think those are some of the things. We also had talked about how to improve the use of veterinarians in public health. I guess that's not rocket science, but that's just things we need to do. And when we've got those things in place, then we can focus on eradicating some of the major diseases around the world, such as tuberculosis and rabies, foot-and-mouth disease, and brucellosis.
Comments, and I'd like a comment from somebody I don't know. Because I only raised my hand for 4. So any comments back to this section of the room, any questions, any observations? Great.
I guess while people are thinking, I'll throw out one. Someone alluded to, I can't remember who, the first 100 years of federal and state investment in our land grant institutions and laboratories. And I'm struggling with, as a laboratory director, trying to figure out how in the hell we're going to be able to do the job that and seize all these opportunities that we were talking about today. Because we've been, everybody's been cut to the bone, and where's that investment going to come from? We used to be kind of thought of somewhere in the realm of police, fire, in the 50s when a lot of this was really growing. It was seen as something really important. Now they're telling us, Carter, cost account everything you got and turn this thing into a friggin' business. And that's it. That's the end of the story. So, I know y'all, I'm just preaching to the choir. I know y'all are feeling exactly the same way in your hearts and your souls, but it's like somehow we got to figure out how to turn this around. I mean, we can have all the bright minds in the world, but if we don't have the resources to tow it down the road, it's not going to happen.
I would argue that the resources are there, the billions of dollars that we spend for health care, that the dollars are there. What we have to do is be a little more entrepreneurial in our approach. We're good in the public health world about selling data and statistics, but we're just learning again how to tell a story. And we have to tell better stories about the impact of prevention and the impact of public health. And we're going to have to argue against some pretty high-powered type A clinicians, especially in the human health world, who are making a great deal and using a great deal of our health resources. So we have to make a cogent argument. We have to tell good stories, population stories, to better impact the cause of public health. And in order to do that, we need more people in public health. And many veterinarians, many students that I mentor or teach or come through on elective, they say, well, where are the jobs for a veterinarian? Well, you have to sell yourself into the position. If you look around, let's say, just taking an example, the veterinarians at CDC, I don't think more than 2 have the same, even close to the same path of where they got to today. And that, I think, is a challenge for the individual. If you see something that needs to be done in prevention, if you're tired, even when you're in the clinics, when you're doing your job, if you see something that can be done better by doing better prevention, you're going to have to take the initiative. And for all of the leaders and all of the people who who are setting things up, and Dr. Steele, who blazed the trail. It's up to each of us to find and create our own path. Because for veterinarians, it's not going to be laid out for us. So again, to answer Dr. Steele's other challenge, it's up to our own individual effort to find an area, whether it's Crohn's disease, whether it's tuberculosis, whether it's food security, and we have to find our own way as veterinarians. And don't forget your foundation. In the past, many who entered the world of public health tried to minimize the importance of that veterinary degree. But in fact, that is the true foundation, and that's what makes us great as a profession, and the critical linchpin, the keystone for effective public health practice in the future. So for all those who are saying, where are the jobs? You can make your own job, you can make your own career, you can make your own impact. And I know that's an issue that our profession will be facing over the next 10 to 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Craig, for your comments about the raw, rough economic realities that are out there. Thank you, Hugh, for that long-term thinking, that long-term strategy. I know that there's hundreds of veterinarians at CDC, and each has made their own way there, using their own skills and talents. Question right here.
As a corollary of what Hugh said, I think we also need to consider the fact.
Oh,
I'm sorry, it's Dick Harris. I'm with the Department of Defense Armed Forces Health Surveillance Center. We also need to consider, in addition to creating your own slots, at the ones where there are known entities of veterinary expertise, such as CDC, such as USDA. There are other areas that are screaming out for veterinarians, even though they may not even know it. The World Bank has a veterinarian, and he has been, being in DC, he's been on my list to try and track down and talk to for years, and I just haven't gotten around to it. But if the World Bank has a veterinarian, why do other groups have a veterinarian? And we should be looking at the ones that don't, to make sure that our skill set is seen there, because that is such a valuable skill set. So I would encourage people to not focus on simply, the known entities, but rather reach out to other areas, because yes, you need to create in some instances your position, but there are plenty of places to do it besides what's normally thought of.
We're talking a little bit at the micro level about what each individual can do, but we also have macro level, systemic kinds of challenges.
Excuse me?
Wicked problems. We have
I'm sorry, it's very hard for Dr. Steele to hear. Can I ask if the speakers could pass around the microphone?
Well, all we have is the mic in the computer, and
Maybe they can come over.
I can try to put it a little higher.
Okay, or should they come
Yeah, they
stand
can
right
come
here?
to, we'll ask speakers to come to the microphone.
Oh, boy.
And by the way, thank you very much. There's 3 veterinarians with shifts in Houston: Regina Todd, Fabian Eque, and Paul Brumo. And they're, I'm sure, enjoying this as much as we all are.
Or Craig, would it be easier to talk on a laptop?
No, it's okay. I think they'll hear from here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So can you hear me?
Is that any better?
Is that better? Dr.
Yes, that's
Steele?
better, thank you.
Good, that's better.
Great.
So my name is Tina Parker, and I'm one of the few veterinarians that is at the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Dr. Stokes and I are both at NIH. There are a few of us that are outside the intramural area at NIH, but we do exist. And I know that, it's been quite a challenge for us to convince those that be at NIH that One Health is actually something that is of importance to human medicine. And I think it was Mo Solomon earlier today that had the typical pie chart of the thirds of human, animal, and environment, and then showed us a picture of, it's more than a third for humans. And I think that's the larger reality here, is that for veterinarians to convince the human side of this triangle, that One Health is something that is valid and viable, we need to focus on the human side of this human-animal interface. And I know Bill probably would argue with that because it's also the environmental side, but you know, there's a lot of money going into the human side. There's a lot of money going into NIH and NIAID. And if we can find our way to tap into that, whether it's through big data, through surveillance, genomics, proteomics, you know, systems biology approaches, whatever it is, that's, in my opinion, the way that we can get our message across. Thanks.
That's absolutely a wonderful comment. Thank you. I think we should almost repeat that again. John Clifford has a comment.
I just wanted everybody to remember, if you've got an animal disease passing to a human, you better have animal surveillance. And oftentimes we talk about the human aspects of this. Human aspects gets billions. We get a few million. So it's got to be shared. That's why in our discussions with CDC on influenza, on H1N1 pandemic, some of the money that went to the human health side was provided to us to be able to collect samples. If you'll remember H5N1, which is not gone, HHS used that event to better prepare themselves and got in the billions of dollars. We asked for 100 million, we got 70. Okay? The fact is, the disease still exists in Asia. It's still a threat today. It didn't go away. It wasn't sustained, the effort. And so we as veterinarians need to make sure that those dollars in address the disease, in my opinion, where it exists, not where it might exist. We're going to spend far less dollars to address these issues where it's happening than spending millions and billions of dollars preparing for something that may not happen. Thank you.
Roger Marr, One Health Commission. I would like to really focus on two important words, responsibility and leadership, and those are the words that focused by Lonnie in his address, and those are the words that I focused on 8 years ago as I put forth the opportunity that the veterinary profession had to assume a significant leadership role and take the role to push forward the collaborative One Health approach. Collaborative leadership is key, and as a veterinary profession and as we look at the entity that represents our profession, it's the AVMA, and it was very compelling to have our director of the economic division here to state the words that he did, because he tied in the issues of the veterinary workforce and veterinary economics, which were the two key issues 8 years ago that were the driving force as I assumed my responsibility, and believe the veterinary profession and the AVMA had that leadership responsibility as well. It ties in what Dr. Steele has revealed and continues to reveal, that good public health, good animal health provides good economic health. I challenge the AVMA to continue to take that leadership role and reach out to our other health professions or other related disciplines proactively to not only to bring together that collaborative leadership need, but also to address some of the action plans that are in place, some of the projects and programs that are already committed for the AVMA to focus on. The healthy Partners for Healthy Pets is exactly one which has received a significant commitment from the AVMA to move forward with. I see this as a significant One Health opportunity for our profession to engage not only with other health professions, but with private corporations that are behind that, human and animal alike. And so I believe and continue to believe that even though it seems like we're pushing or we're leading upstream, that it's continued important that we continue as a profession and as our association to continue that responsibility and reach out and move that collaborative leadership forward. Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Steele.
Thank you very much for your comments about leadership. That has been mentioned over and over again. Teresa Bernardo, thank you.
Teresa Bernardo from Michigan State. Hello, Jim. We've been hearing about the need for transdisciplinary work, and we've been hearing the need for systems thinking and some of the issues of resources. And I'd like to mention a resource that I think we've been vastly underutilizing, and that is our interconnectedness. Of the 7 billion people on the planet right now, 6 billion have access to cell phones, and 2 billion are on the internet. So if you want disease surveillance, tell them what you're looking for and let them report it to you. And if you want to eradicate diseases, engage people, let them know why it's important to them. And if you want to influence people's behavior, look at social networks. Find the influencers and send your messages out through them. And this is particularly a call to the young people in the audience who are more familiar with these technologies. You have a lot of skills that you can bring to bear on this.
I'm Katie Kurzak. I'm a recent graduate, 2012, from the University of Illinois, and just wanted to say something quick about how even though I was a late bloomer in the public health kind of sector of things, like second, third year, started to think about it, and focused my clinical year a lot in public health. I'm currently a private practitioner, but I'm glad that my first chunk of CE was spent in this room with all of you, and I feel very fortunate to kind of stumbled in here. I'm relieved to hear what is being said about the education, because even though I specifically chose to focus on public health, I still feel like I have like a smoldering flame that I don't know quite know to do it. So again, like serendipity, I think might be starting myself here right now. And I also know that I'm very much probably not alone in the schools and in the classes. Slightly frustrated with knowing there's something beyond what we're being told or taught. So I want to, I guess, as a younger person being challenged by you, I want to challenge all of you kind of back to, even if you're not in education itself, to get there. Talk to students, go to, specifically reach out. Younger students even, if you can. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jay Moon. I'm the first Dr. Steele student at the UT. My feeling is here. We need young generation to challenge for One Health. So today I just proposed Dr. Steele's scholarship, the seed money, $2,000. I bring me, that's it. Dr. Steele, see you.
My name is Al Zinger. I am 1987 graduate of the University of Illinois, so we're trying to monopolize today. Vet school in 2011, I graduated with my MPH, so I'm a latecomer to the public health field, more ways than one. I really wanted to thank Karen Becker for helping moderate this talk and all those that otherwise helped put it together, the speakers and stuff. It was a great opportunity to reflect upon where I want to go over these next, hopefully 50 years as I go forward. I also wanted to bring out something that was mentioned too. We do need to tap into the numbers out there, the people that can connect. We learn from Google and from people on Facebook how to localize and track down influenza. We know that the use of cell phones and stuff, but the human side is even getting a little ahead and giving us maybe a food for thought. I recently read where they have connected GPS location devices to inhalators. So now they are going to be able to determine hotspots for asthma cases. And I've been thinking, and occasionally throughout the day, parts time, how can we take that technology, because that GPS now moved from being the size of, you know, I guess a small laptop, down to being right on the inhalator itself. And what great good would we be able to do if we can move it from the macro down to the micro area? Thank you. Thank you, Karen, for inviting me.
I'm going to make one comment without the microphone, and you made a comment about going out and you can create your own opportunities. Four of the career positions I had were not in existence when I took them. Tim Steele had to do with making sure there was a veterinarian position on an interdisciplinary team. So I retired as associate dean at Colorado State, decided to move out to Oregon here, where I always wanted to move to Portland. Is that I still at age 60 wasn't ready to retire after maybe one on Saturday. So I went out there and I started looking for opportunities with MPH, wrote grants for infectious diseases, co-founded the Delta Society with Leo Buford and my brother, Marty Anderson. And so there was a job there that said administrative director of the Alzheimer's Disease Center of Oregon. And so I applied for this thing. And the thing I found sometimes, has been a former small animal practitioner, people sometimes go, what's a dog doctor doing applying for a job like that? So a lot of the time we have to educate the public about our diversified training, especially with veterinary public health. So there were positions on the joint thing between Oregon Health Science and University and the Medical School, Legacy Hospital System, the biggest in the Portland area, and the VA Medical Center and Research Center. They were the three bosses that I actually had there. And I went in on a grant, took a little pay cut from academia, but you know, I'm 60 now. And the point is, you know, I still had people. I had that DVM on there and an administrative director of the Alzheimer's Disease Center in Oregon. They said, well, you know, maybe you'll lose your memory and you won't worry about it. Well, my point is, I'm taking risks of doing things that you mentioned. There are a lot of places out there that you might have to take a risk, may not quite pay what you want sometimes, if you're passionate for it. You could make opportunities. That's my story.
I'm Bill Stokes. Peter said he wanted to hear more about NIH after my colleague spoke, so I'll give him a little bit more. NIH is a $30 billion plus enterprise a year. Hundreds of thousands of investigators are supported by NIH grants. 80% of the budget goes in form of grants and contracts to universities, including, I think, most of the veterinary schools now have NIH grants. So, you know, there's a lot of positions out there that aren't called veterinary positions. They're scientist positions, they're toxicologist positions, there's positions supporting that research in terms of laboratory animal medicine careers, careers in veterinary pathology, radiology. I mean, keep in mind that every major medical advance involved animals. And most of those major medical advances also involve veterinarians. You don't hear too much about that because the veterinarians aren't the ones getting the Nobel Prizes. But they're there. And this is it's changing, but it's not going to change that fast. We still need good animal models. We need more predictive animal models. We've got ways of engineering them now. But we need veterinarians to help develop those animal models and to use those animal models more efficiently so that we can translate the basic research knowledge that's generated at the bench so that we can move it into the bedside in terms of better treatments, but ideally better prevention strategies in terms of better medicines to prevent disease, early intervention types of treatments, and things like vaccines. I mean, every vaccine, there's an animal model for it. So, you know, I think veterinarians, you know, we kind of pigeonhole ourselves. We have to work, you know, on veterinary medicine issues. But like I said earlier, there's thousands of veterinarians that work in this NIH enterprise, as well as, you know, hundreds, if not thousands, of veterinarians that work for the pharmaceutical industry in developing better medicines and vaccines. So I think the opportunities are out there. As Hugh mentioned, you know, we're really facing a crisis in terms of healthcare costs due to rising chronic diseases and such. And we have to turn that around. We really do have to focus on prevention. And so whether you're a practitioner, whether you're working in public health, whether you're working in research, we all need to be advocates for prevention. And we need to show that when we interact with people, whether they're clients, whether they're colleagues in our company or organization, that we're interested in human health too, not just the health of pets, because we have this stigma of, you know, doggy doctors. But really, we need to show that we're advocates for health. And we need to do this at all levels, particularly in our communities. I mean, if our veterinarians can show that they're advocates for human health, they're going to get attention and they're going to be very popular. So the veterinarians that are there advocating for an environment in the community where people can walk their pets safely, that there can be dog parks where people can take their pets and congregate. And we know the benefits of people interact with each other when they walk their pets, because they stop and they sniff and then the people talk. And, you know, there's so many benefits to pet ownership. But we all need to keep this in mind, the big picture. And I think if we think in those bigger terms, that those opportunities will come available to us. And I think this excess capacity is truly an opportunity. And as Will said, you know, it's an opportunity for innovation in what we do and where we go and how we contribute. So, anyway, thank you.
We're going to close up, but I'd like to ask Karen Becker to just send us off. And I want to thank everybody. Personally, I want to thank everybody for their participation and their interest.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Will, for doing such a great job summarizing and then moderating this final session, part of the session. I want to thank everybody from the committee that helped pull this together. It was such a pleasure to work with everyone. I learned so much and got so much out of it. Just myself, Jim Steele just went up to the room, but I just got a text message saying to thank everybody, that he is really impressed and very satisfied with our answer today of how we're moving forward. So where do we go from here? I would like to draft a report and have it also reflect some of the comments made. So what I'd like to do, and you know, you learn as you go. Next year we'll do even better. But I'll have a piece of paper here, because people can come up and at least give me their emails. I'll give you my email, but if you give me your email, if you made a comment, and if you wanted to add anything about a certain interest or a comment, to sort of focus in on why you came today or what you got out of it, that would be really helpful, because I don't want to lose the strength and what we build here. So we can move on and continue to work with you and get your input. And I'd like to also reflect your comments in case I missed some of them today inadvertently. We'd like to have a report published. I think Jim Steele will probably be the first author on the report, and probably write a foreword. And then we'll summarize this and hopefully publish it either in AVMA, probably is the most obvious place, but we can talk amongst ourselves about that. And then continue to communicate with each other on the action plan and moving toward not just another meeting next year, but also addressing some of these milestones or these action steps that we discussed. And agree on the priorities and possibly look at what we can accomplish to report out in next year's meeting. Because I think the James Steele One Health Challenge this is the first year, and I think we're going to be celebrating it in 100 years. So, but with that, we really want your input, so I'm going to hang around so that I can collect names, and then we can connect, because yeah, we do have the electronic age, and we have Skype, and as you can see today, so we don't really have any excuses for not strengthening our networks, but so with that, I just wanted to thank everybody. I think it's been a tremendous day, and we really appreciate you all being here and all the work that the speakers put in, and Craig Carter with just making sure that everything was connected to Houston, and so on.
And most of all, let's hear it for this young lady right here. Good job.
I do have the chutzpah to ask anybody who wants to follow Dr. Moon's example.
Yeah, good to see you.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. And thank
That was actually beyond mine.
Here's the data.
Well, we gotta get those first few citizens now at Starbucks, right? Dennis Jacobs. I think so. Try to follow her on LinkedIn and, Scott Brooks is with Young Brands, those are the dollar guys. And, to get that sort of support. And that's cool.
That's all where I hope we're going. They may not even really want to do that. I just thought that while I do this,
there's a few
website is kind of like all the history on
that's the issue that ties the AVMA and governance. One of my executive board members applying in terms of AVMA governance, executive runs the show, and public practice really doesn't have that level. Well, that's what we need an executive who is public health but it's like we're a minority in the minority.